Welcome everyone to our panel. We have the who of the gaming here, so I'm very excited to have so cool panelists on the panel. I will quickly introduce you to the guys, and then I will enlighten you with the questions I've been thinking of the last few nights and days. I couldn't think of anything better than great questions for this panel. So next to me is sitting Jan Neubacher from BILD Digital. He is the product manager of the gaming section for BILD, which is a part of Axel Springer, one of the biggest publisher
in Germany.
Yeah. You see, so very big. Next to him sits Leonard Frankel. I think everyone from Israel anyway knows him, but for those who don't happen to know him, he is the head of business development from Plarium.
Yeah, thank you, Netta. So Plarium is the largest hardcore game developer on Facebook. We focus on strategy games, and now we have 3 games that are launched and doing very well on mobile. All of them are in strategy, and we're very happy to be here in the panel today.
Great. Next to him sits Devin Radford. He is from Fox Digital Entertainment, the VP of Business Development, and he has lots of great things and insights to share with us as well.
Thank you, Netta. Hello, everyone.
And last but not least, Sean Lee from Wargaming. He is the Chief Strategy Officer for Wargaming, which is a very big company with great parties. So I think if you don't know their games, you know their parties for sure.
Some people call me the Chief Party Officer.
You see? So we have the right people here. Okay, now let's get to the interesting stuff. The first question, now actually when we think about user acquisition, at least where I was at Big Point before, we saw that we had difficulties with the traditional ways of getting users to our games. So we went more and more to try to do campaigns on Twitch and YouTube and work with cool YouTubers and Let's Plays. And so Jan, what do you think? I mean, you work a lot on user acquisition. Do you think that going forward, there will be more and more user acquisition through Twitch and through YouTube, or do you think that the traditional way of getting users is still the way it can be?
I think both is growing, and video is the best way to promote games in itself. And this since the older days, also in traditional TV, we started promoting games with moving pictures, with videos. And was all the time the best way to show what a game really performs and what it has. So I think it will grow a lot.
Leonard, so you basically said you have games on Facebook, but since you are a bit core games, I guess that Twitch and YouTube are very important platforms for you too, I would imagine.
All right, so our current strongest titles are not action-driven, so there's not a lot of cinematics happening within the game. We have less players taking videos of and screenshots of their gameplay. Well, they do take screenshots of their winning victory screens when they defeat huge armies. That's always fun. But I can tell you that what we see, and we're very active in user acquisition, is that CPIs, and everyone knows that, are rising, and everyone's looking for alternative promotion channels. And we are also working with some leaders in YouTube communities, less so in Twitch, but we are definitely looking into it to promote our brand and grow the awareness of players to our games. And if you can see new platforms such as MobCrush attracting strong executives like Greg Assig and Ko Kim, both of them were App Store managers in Apple and Google, then there's definitely a growing interest in these platforms, and you can see PewDiePie is a YouTube leader, right? And he has his own line of games right now, and maybe he's going to get a TV show soon. So I don't think it's going away. It's definitely growing.
Devin, you mentioned to me that you're a gamer inside out. So how much time do you spend on Twitch?
Oh, I'm not that hardcore. I'm what you call a casual gamer. I focus more on mobile, but I think Twitch and YouTube are definitely going to increase user acquisition for certain types of games. Like Leo said, I think depends on the style of game. But it's definitely an exciting time for being able to view, for people to watch games and get into them from a different channel. I think it's exciting to see Twitch versus YouTube right now, and it'll be interesting to see who wins that battle. And then on mobile platforms, Mob Crush for sure is, I think everyone's watching to see how that goes. I personally didn't think that this trend was going to continue. I couldn't have foreseen this a few years ago. I was like, because I was never interested in watching people play video games. But clearly it is happening, and we've got two juggernauts that are competing. So I'm excited to see how it pans out.
Sean, so from Wargaming side, would you say you invest more in Twitch or in YouTube or in neither of them, in another platform? So what is your strategy about those channels or other channels?
Well, once you reach size that Wargaming is going to reach over the past number of years, where we operate across the world, we have 150 million plus users, we have 17 offices. Once you kind of reach that scale, I think you kind of go beyond being analytical about how you approach user acquisitions and marketing. One of the goals that we have as a company is to create lifestyle products. So instead of a game that you would play, we want our users to be engaged with our products in the way Harley-Davidson riders engage with Harley-Davidson. It's a lifestyle thing. They wear, they drive, they live, they breathe, they attend events, they drink beer that's related to our products. So from that perspective, we leverage all of those platforms that you guys discussed and beyond, and we actually go a little bit further in the sense of we believe in the importance of those platforms so much that we've actually made some strategic investments into platforms like Hitbox.tv, which is a European competitor to Twitch. We've made investments to Mob Crush's competitor, Camcord, just because we have seen such a positive lift from engaging with our communities through those platforms. So just from our perspective, it's a little bit broader, a little bit deeper, and we try to go full force into all of those platforms. So they're all equally important in our view.
Thanks. Now, from the discussions we've had before previously in our small group, I might go to a more controversial question between the panelists. So, Sean, let's start with you, since you have, I think, a different opinion than the others. So, mobile, is that the most important platform? Or when we talk about platforms, where do you see the future trends going? Is it going to be mobile? Is it going to be a totally new device? Is it going to be VR? What do you think?
I was only laughing because just right before this panel, we had our weekly management meeting. Half of the discussion was around mobile. So where we are today as a company is we started off as a PC company. That's in our core DNA. We've kind of expanded that out into console, but as we see the market, if you're kidding yourself if you think mobile isn't something that's relevant. I have heard people who have told me in my face that mobile is going to go away like browser games.
So you believe that browser games are going away?
But going back to the point on mobile, it is so it is so obviously in our face. The mobile experience is so in our face that for you to ignore it, do it at your peril. At Wargaming, it is not the biggest part of our business, but it is definitely getting the biggest mind share of our management.
So what do you think about browser games? Do you think they're going away? You're not getting away from that question?
No, I do not think it's going to go away per se. I think that general experience is going to slowly like melt into a mobile experience. So we see more and more browser/mobile experiences. I think that distinction, the casual approach to, not the casual, but the way you approach those contents, I think is going to slowly melt, and the boundaries between mobile and browser are going to just go away.
Okay, Devin, what is your take on that?
Well, again, my focus is mobile, so I'm probably a little biased, but yeah, I think, in a lot of cases, it really depends on the experience that you're trying to create. A lot of our games so we're mobile first always in our licensing deals, and then we'll go upstream depending on what the game is and what the technology is. Everyone's using Unity, so it's pretty easy to put a game on PC. So, I think it's really comes down to what type of experience you're trying to create. If you're doing like a narrative-driven adventure game, it makes a lot of sense to go into browser and go into Steam. But, a casual game, you're probably going to want to take advantage of the massive user base that mobile offers. And that's obviously a big market opportunity for us with our brands. I mean, we've got massive audiences, and when you've got 60 million people who say they're a fan of The Simpsons on Facebook, it makes the most sense to reach them all with the broadest platform that you can. So for me, it's like mobile is the now and it's the future.
So you believe that it will be the strongest platform from all?
Well, I mean, it depends what your metrics are. I think without a doubt, it's the biggest opportunity to reach the most people. I think the experiences are very different. They're bite-sized, obviously. If you're looking at per player KPIs, maybe browser's a more exciting opportunity for you, and you can get users that are spending, tens of thousands of dollars. But by the same token, we've also seen companies like Supercell do that on mobile. So, and others, not just Supercell, but they're the best right now. So yeah, I think it really depends on what type of game you're making and what you're trying to accomplish. But I think there are equal opportunities on mobile and on a browser, and I don't think it's going away.
Leonard, so, I mean, apart from the fact that he just mentioned Supercell is bigger than you, but...
Right, so for us, mobile is key. We focus most of our efforts, almost all of our development is now mobile first. But if you look at mobile platforms, the reality is that in the last 3 years, the top grossing charts have really been stagnated. There's not a lot of change over there. But this is the reality for the West. So when you go to the Eastern Hemisphere, there's rapid changes. I mean, of course...
East is Eastern Europe or far further east?
So further to the east, in Asia, you can see that the grossing charts change very rapidly. So in Japan, in Korea, in China. And my question is, are these companies able to outperform themselves more frequently, or is just the trends there changing more frequently, so the players' taste is changing there? In terms of platform, mobile doesn't seem to be going away. I mean, everyone's going to use a phone in 3-5 years. Would it be holographic or physical? Doesn't matter. It will still be a handheld device, and this platform will probably just grow as more and more people connect to it and get smartphones. But I don't think other platforms are going away that fast either.
So you still believe in browser?
Well, yeah, browser is still doing very good for us, and it's a growing business. Yeah.
Jan, so what is the view of the biggest German publisher on that?
Referring to the mobile question, I'm sure that mobile is for the most games the most important platform in the future. Maybe not for hardcore and so on, but everything was this casual and mid-core. And also for platform agnostic games, the mobile part is very important because it's the most personal device. So we have also a lot of platform agnostic games on browser and mobile. But more people are paying on mobile. They are playing both, but they are paying on mobile. It's more usable through the app stores, and this is what we see. And the question if browser is going away, we don't hope so. This is the first I have to say, because for us it's the most lucrative business, I have to say. It has the funnel is different from mobile. There's a 30% share that we don't have to pay on browser. The funnel looks quite good. The conversion from teasers in web and also in mobile web to the landing pages of our partners is better than through an app store. So we are keen to continue this business, and I also believe that for a lot of games, browser is attractive also in the future, but it's also a technology thing. So Flash is maybe in the next year's problem from the browser side. So it's also about HTML5, what's going on there. So I think the biggest problem for browser, especially on mobile, is the payment process. So if you have microtransactions in browser games on mobile, it's not such usable as through an app store. And the success of browser games on PC was a usable thing. So it was easier to play and to register on the landing page in a browser than download and install a PC download. But this isn't the case on mobile. It's easier to install from the app store then go to landing pages and also the payment process.
Before we get to the next question, Leonard just mentioned about Asia being territory where we see a big rise in mobile, much bigger than we see it in the Western side. Sean, I think from the looks you might be the expert about that.
Well,
it was just a guess.
As the token Asian on this panel, I think I can authoritatively talk about Asia. Well, just a little bit about my background. Before Wargaming, I was actually doing similar strategy investments, M&A for Tencent in China. So I think I have a little bit of experience there. Asia, massive. We all know that. Huge, fastest growing market in the world. PC still growing at double-digit rates. Mobile is growing at double-digit rates. They even started doing console in China. So we'll see how that goes. But as a general comment, Asia is difficult. If you're not an Asian developer or publisher, it's an extremely difficult market to crack. Just look at all the charts. Go to Korea, go to Japan, go to China. Look at top 10, top 20, top 50, top 100. Chances are you're going to see a very limited number of international titles who have had success over there. My only advice, I think, on this point is, number one, make sure you keep an eye on that market. If you can dedicate staff or teams who can kind of focus on that market, that would be great if you can afford it. If you can't, still keep an eye on it. Number two, if you're going to go there, make sure you don't kid yourself thinking you can do some kind of a game, some kind of development, publishing yourself within your respective teams and be successful. Invest in the right people locally, the right teams locally, and give them full empowerment to execute best in their respective markets. That would be my only comment.
Okay, thanks. You wanted to
I
say
want to talk
something?
about Asia.
Okay.
So we
Let
only
us-
have a few brands that are even popular there. There's like a handful. It's like our big films, and we distribute our games obviously on mobile, and they were Western developers distributing in China, specifically in China because that's the biggest opportunity, and just didn't have success. We got a lot of downloads. I'll give you an example. Like for Ice Age, it's a hugely popular brand in China, but the games didn't make any money, and these are very Western like simulation games. And so we sort of 18 months ago shifted our approach, and now we're not granting rights to Western developers in China. That's just unless they have a partner from the get-go. So now we're going. I spent a lot of time there this year, and we're only doing deals with local partners. And we haven't launched our first game, but it'll come out probably in April. And so we're very excited. But I think it's been challenging. But like to echo what Sean said, it's like, the only way I think we're going to have any success there is by working with local partners who know the market and know the type of gameplay that Chinese audience are looking for. And so that's our approach. But for sure, I think there's a big question mark for us. It's like we want to make money in the second biggest market or potentially the first biggest market in mobile. So I think the only way to do that is to work with local partners.
I guess you want to say something about Asia too?
Just a little bit. No, I don't have a lot to say about Asia because our business there is not, does not exist yet, but we're working on it. And what I do see with Asia, and I've been traveling to Asian conferences in the last few years, watching the local market, talking to local developers and publishers, is that there is a lot of interest from both sides, Western developers and Eastern developers, to make the shift. Eastern developers do want to succeed overseas. They've had a few previous success stories like Gumi's, Brave Frontier, and there was a Summoner's War from Korea, and so you do see some games make successful ventures. And by the way, Heroes Charge is by a company that's listed in the US but is basically Chinese. Their operation is in China. So there's been a few satellite games that have successfully made the transition. Of the Western developers, it's mostly the top-grossing games like Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, etc., that are successful there. It is a very interesting opportunity, and I think going forward, we'll see more of that coming, more shifting between sides. You see now that, for example, NetEase is opening offices in London. They're trying to get local Western developers, but they'll probably teach them some of their knowledge. And you need to remember that Asians were first to free-to-play long before anyone in the West knew it exists. 1994, I think, Nexon came out with this crazy arcade, which was among the first major free-to-play titles. And so Asians have a lot of knowledge they bear, and once they crack the more simplistic approach of games we have in the West, I think it will be easier to see them transitioning. For us in the West, and I can also only talk about us, we understand that we do have a lot to learn. If we want to go into China, if we want to go into Korea, if we want to go to Japan, each one of them is a different market. And we think anyone else should also pay a lot of attention to these markets because the potential is huge.
You want to talk about Asia too?
Oh, as a German publisher and distribution portal, I don't have so much to add to this question.
Okay. So let's get to the next question. Why we were at platform. So we talked about mobile, we talked about browser. The new trend, since we talk about trends, actually we should get to that point. Everyone's talking about is VR. Now it's still very small, I guess, it's just on a few, like you need a special device for that, but do you believe that VR is something that will grow in the future? Like, I don't know, will we have phones where like in Mission Impossible, it would just come out of the phone and then we can just in the air play around games? Or what do you think will VR be in a few years? Will it be big, or is it just a trend now and just the hardcore fans will buy a device and there won't be anything for mobile? Or what do you think? Who wants to start? Who dares?
I can try. So VR, yeah. I mean, I tried it 2 times and it's really impressive. I think everybody who tries it's impressed by VR. So, but also I think for the people that are here with mobile and tablet games and casual and mid-core again, maybe it's not the thing for the next 3 years. I mean, in the long run, of course, we will reach the holodeck in 200 years and we'll all play the games there. But when we talk about money and talk about what happens the next 3 years, I think, of course, there will be business in it, and maybe with the consoles and with the PC hardcore games, it will start. But for the mass market, where we are focused in, really for mainstream, it's not such a big thing in the next 2 or 3 years. It's my opinion. So.
We can go wild, you know. We don't have to follow the order. If you want to go wild, just saying.
Next question. I'll go wild.
I can't wait.
I've tried VR a few times. It almost does not make me sick every time. I don't think it will be mainstream ever. And I think if you look at other gaming consoles that were very physical in usage, like Wii and Move, it only can get you so far. I mean, even with handheld devices, when you have to when you use tilt to advance in a racing game, I mean, the conversion is much lower. Players are really lazy in their usage of game, and they don't want to move too much. And I think if you got this bulky thing on your head and you got to walk around the house, and it's very active, I don't see people bringing it into the mainstream market. Also, games might not be the best use case for VR. Think about buying an apartment and taking a stroll in it. That makes a lot of sense. Think about fashion. That works well in VR. Sex, maybe. But games, I don't know. It will have its market. It will be, in my opinion, niche. And it will take years to mature. Also, the development costs are high because you need to create all of these assets around you. And it's not like a small screen where you have just a 2K or 4K resolution to deal with. That's my take.
But do you believe that, like with regular normal mobile phones, there will be a change, like, I don't know, 3D or 4D or, I don't know, 6, 7D coming out of the phone? Will there be something like that, or is it just my wild imagination?
Well, so like I said, I do believe sometimes the phones will be more holographic, but it's not really far-seeing, right? And even when they are, we will interact with it, right? We will sense our movement and we'll be able to interact in 3D space. But even then, I do think that our gaming space will be confined and small and will not require a lot of movement on our side to interact with it. Maybe we'll have a ring that commands it when we move our finger. Something like the latest radar that Google introduced in their I/O that lets you recognize gestures from far. I don't think we'll be moving in wide spaces and running around.
I tend to agree with most of what you said.
Not about the sex part.
No, I think, no comment. Did you see that video where everyone tried porn for the first time? It blew everybody's mind. I promised myself I wouldn't say that in this panel. So the way that we're looking at VR from a studio perspective is to bring audience into our franchises, into our wider brands. And so last year we started taking the big Christmas tree cameras around to all of our sets, and it began as like a sort of ancillary content, like value-added media for our films, and think like DVD extras, which I think it's questionable whether or not those actually sell DVDs for us or not. I won't comment on that either, but we started capturing VR content and looking into the future to be like, okay, well, how can we use this? Can we offer a VR experience for people who buy the DVD early or buy movie tickets in advance? But again, this is a tool for us to promote our films, whether that's in the theater or in home entertainment, and that's really the way that we've looked at it and the focus for us. Again, my role is to drive incremental revenue for the properties. So for us, VR it's not here yet. We are talking to a lot of developers, and we do want to create some cool experiences with our brands that make money. I think like everybody else, it's probably not today and not tomorrow, and for a few years down the line. But for now, I think it's a pretty cool way to engage our audiences that are really interested in our franchises. I think when we release the second Avatar, in a few years, there's going to be some really, really cool VR content, and we'll probably push the industry forward with that. Again, but that's a question mark, even for someone who works at Fox.
So Sean, you mentioned before VR. You don't want to take away the people who currently play in your games and pay in your games, and VR would be for you a risk to move them away. Don't you think it's more those people would play the same games as well there, or do you think that people would really move away and play only there?
I don't think the size of the VR market currently, or at least in the next few years, as Jan points out, is going to be meaningful enough for us to think of it as a threat per se. I think if anything, it'll be a complementary experience to what we already offer. Interesting thing is some relevant folks from Facebook, Oculus, even third parties have come to us and highlighted this for us, that the ideal VR experience is if you're piloting, you're stationary inside a vehicle and you're piloting the vehicle. I can think of tanks, planes, ships. There's a lot of stuff we can do with it. And they have come to us saying, you guys should absolutely do this. So I would agree that there are things we can do as a company. But going back to Jan's point, from a business perspective, one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to be very focused on our core platforms and our core kind of strategy. And VR, the way we're approaching it is, we haven't made a call on whether there's going to be a market for it or not. We're still monitoring it very carefully. We are doing kind of various small-scale R&D projects that focus on the experience of VR, not necessarily a game per se, but experiences that allow our users to engage with our world through the lens of VR. That's how we're approaching it. If I don't want to make a commentary on VR as future, it's really difficult to tell. As a user, I welcome it. I will buy every set and kit that comes out. Does that mean the mainstream market's going to adapt that? I'm not sure. As one example, compared to a regular movie, IMAX is fantastic. Does everybody go to IMAX? Not necessarily. I'm sure all of you at some point in your life have gone to those 4D cinemas where the chair shakes and water sprays. It's super immersive. It's fantastic. Is that where you go every day? Not really. Once again, I'm not saying, or I'm not trying to poo-poo VR per se. I love it. I don't know. So our perspective is monitor carefully.
Okay. So my next question, Devin will be happy about that one. So basically what we see is a lot of the movies become games, games become movies, a lot of games use popular licenses. Is that something we will see more and more going forward? Like, will the TV and movie business and games business grow more together, or will that still be occasionally? And does it really help to sell more when you have a cool franchise?
You want me to answer this one? I don't know anything about this subject. So yeah, right now for us, it's a perfect time on mobile. I think everybody who's a game developer knows that CPIs are going through the roof. Stores have thousands of apps every week coming in. So it's very hard for discoverability, and it's very expensive. So obviously brands are one way to lower the cost of user acquisition, to get featured by the platforms, et cetera. So that's like my sales pitch, I guess. But yeah, right now it's definitely huge on mobile. But if you think 10 years ago, the console business, THQ was doing only licensed games. There were a lot of big movie games, but for the most part, those games ended up being not very well reviewed, and there's a number of reasons for that. Not least of which was, when you have to pay a royalty to the studio, you probably don't want to put your resources toward, creating this game when you could create original IP where you own that IP and make a lot of money. And now on console, you've got, like Call of Duty 10, and you've got it's like the fourth and fifth and sixth iteration of all these. So the big game publishers on console have all created their own IP. They don't need us at all. On mobile, right now, I think we're very much needed, and it's pretty exciting. What we're trying to do, though, is not, stay away from like brand slaps, and in some cases it's cool to do like a reskin and put the game out and it works, but we're trying to create new experiences that are parallel stories to our films, and whether or not it's always worked, that's questionable. But yeah, right now brands are definitely big on mobile. I think that'll continue for a short time, but when we start to see consolidation, and who knows, platform shift, that's also something that we should watch for. But for now, yes, definitely brands are big on mobile.
But it goes both ways, right? So games are licensing from TV and film, and then you have Lara Croft the movie, and you have Angry Birds the movie, and you have World of Warcraft coming. So it goes both ways.
Assassin's Creed.
Right.
That's a Fox
Hitman
movie.
and quite a few.
You guys are listening, good.
And in Plarium, we're actually a big believer in IPs and brands, and this is a strategy that we are seriously considering to adapt in the near future. But if you look at the two experiences, so movies and TV shows, they're passive, right? You sit in front of the entertainment and you consume it, while games are very active. So I think the usages are different. If you look historically, what happened with every platform, the level of graphics and the level of creation, the user experience for movies has evolved rather slowly, I think, compared to games, which evolved very quickly per each platform until it peaked. So on consoles, you have games that look amazing, they're so immersive, Destiny and the likes. And browser games, your previous company, Netta, right? Big Point, they created beautiful browser games that reached really amazing graphics and were so immersive. Now mobile phones are really getting there, and you can see games like the upcoming CSR, which looks so realistic, and it's catching up. So games are becoming almost as an impressive experience in terms of graphics as movies are, but it will peak. There's like the envelope, the boundaries of the envelope are coming in soon.
But do you see that having a game with a brand and having a game with no brand, do you see differences in how you can get users to your game?
Well, we'll know in 1 week. We have our first branded event.
We all meet
launched.
again in 1 week here, then, we'll know.
We're gathering again for the panel.
It's worked pretty well for us.
We have our first branded event, Alien versus Predator. That's by Fox. Thanks. Coming,
Good brand, very good brand.
right? Coming to our game, Soldiers Inc. And we have very high expectations for it. We've invested a lot of effort in making it a very immersive experience for our players, and we want them to feel the brand. We're big believers in it. Time will tell, but I'm optimistic.
Sean, Jan, who wants
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Then we should talk about tomorrow about this Predator thing, because our experience also that we have better CTRs on branded content, of course, nearly double when you see the average. And yes, so it's really a marketing thing. You know, it helps to acquire users. The conversion is higher, especially for certain brands. But I also agree with Leonard that it's the type of media of film and games are different. The role of the player. He wants to explore a world. Also, if the cinematics are impressive, it's a totally different experience than watching a film in a more passive role.
I would agree with that, and to Leonard's point, I think video games over the years have really elevated themselves in terms of overall quality, not only in terms of the graphical fidelity or the level of interaction, but the depth of the worlds and the stories and characters and whatnot, which is why you see more and more movies being made out of video games, because people are so immersed and attached to those characters. Imagine, I mean, just for clarity, or for transparency, Wargaming get a lot of approaches from Hollywood studios asking, can we do a movie about World of Tanks, or can we do a movie about World of Warplanes, etc. It makes a lot of sense, because think about it, we could have done something like Band of Brothers, in case you guys like that kind of stuff. We could have done something like Saving Private Ryan in some sense. There is, I think, increasingly a convergence of entertainment, and I think the perspective I take on this is video games. I completely agree with you, Jan, but to some extent, video games of 20 years ago, I think is quite different from video games of today, where I view and we view ourselves more as people who provide interactive entertainment. And the funny thing is, if you watch TVs, movies less so these days, but the general trend that broadcasters and whatnot are trying to go after is they're trying to bring in more ways to interact with the audience, whether it's through Twitter or real time, whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. So we still have a long way to go. I completely agree the mediums are different, but I think everybody's trying to go for that ultimate experience of entertainment and interactivity.
Now, a topic that actually makes us all still work at the companies we work, monetization of games. So I think the most popular way of monetizing is free-to-play, if I'm not mistaken. That was my personal research. Do you agree, Leonard, since you have done proper research? Yes.
Yeah.
So do you think going forward it's going to be free-to-play, or Amazon has a new monetization model to pay developers for the minute? What do you think is going to be the monetization thing now and the next few years coming up? Anyone?
Free-to-play is dominant today. I think you're seeing trends on mobile where particularly Apple is promoting more indie games, more premium games, for whatever reason. So yeah, I think you're seeing some platform influence to try and push developers away from free-to-play. I don't necessarily think that free-to-play is going to go away. I think it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, though. Some of the more tried and true mechanics, from Asia, like gacha, the time-based stuff that drives everybody nuts, in simulation games. I think right now on mobile in particular, we're going to see a shift in genres, and what's going to come with that is a change in how users are monetized in the game. But I don't necessarily think we're going to go back to like a premium model. I think the user behavior has been too well established from the beginning of mobile, where the games were all 99 cents, and right away we established a low bar for this content, which I think, well, I mean, doesn't matter what I think, but maybe that was too low of a bar. But I think at that time, Apple and Google were trying to get people onto their platforms. So in any case, I think that free-to-play will definitely evolve. It's interesting to see what Amazon is doing. Hi, Mike. Hi, Annie. It's interesting to see what they're doing. We've heard some good testimonials from some of the bigger free-to-play sort of casual guys where they're very happy with the model. I think I'll be interested to see some data. We have a game on Amazon Underground, so we're excited to see how that works out. But I think this is one example of a new model that will transform the way that users are monetized, and it'll be really interesting to see how it pans out.
And Leonard, what do you think? I mean, there are some users who call free-to-play actually pay-to-win. There's also monetization models. So, because a lot of companies, especially in the early days of free-to-play, monetized and balanced their games as a pay-to-win, really. I mean, you didn't have a chance if you didn't spend money on your ship or whatever to win against someone else. Now, it's more, from what I've seen, games try to do it the way that you kind of have vanity items, and now we have this new model. What do you think?
Well, pay-to-win is considered... No, I know pay-to-win is considered very evil in the West, but just as an anecdote, you need to understand that in China, for example, it's a prerequisite. Players that spend money want other players to see it. I mean, what's the purpose in their mind? What's the purpose of spending money if I'm the only one who knows about it? Like buying a shiny car that no one else can see. But in the West, I agree that players perceive it as a very bad practice if their only way to advance is by paying, and then after they pay, they see someone else who paid a little more and has a bigger edge. But let's take a step backwards and think about how free-to-play was evolved initially. So free-to-play was there in part to battle piracy. Players were downloading illegal copies of games, and packaged games were being ripped and cracked. And during the BBS times, your mother would interrupt your download, and you were, my story anyway. And over the time, it has evolved, and it was through competition that drove price down, same as we see now on mobile. That was on PC and in coffee shops. It started in Asia, like I said. But today, when you look at free-to-play compared to paid or premium games, there is more to it. So small developers often prefer creating games in a premium model because then the game is packaged, right? You finish developing it, and then you release it, and it's done. A player bought it, and the player does not expect to get additional content because that's what they paid for, and your work is simpler. At Plarium, I mean, we look at all the games as a service, and we look to service our players, and whenever we launch a game, we see it being live and entertaining players for 10 years or more. And that's a lot of work to prepare for, and not everyone is willing to do it. But if you look at payment models that are coming up, subscription has been discussed, not yet to rise. We see it in various genres, maybe education, it could grow. Mainstream, not sure. Needs a valid reason for someone to keep spending or to punch their cards for $10 a month from now on to the next year. I do think free-to-play will stay here, and it will pose more and more challenge for developers as the bar raises and players expect more rapid updates, more live operations, and not everyone can sustain those.
Jan, anything you want to say about it?
Yes, what I can say is free-to-play is hated by most of the users, like we see in the app stores and also on our portals when we promote free-to-play games. This is what is criticized in the first place. But on the other hand, and you have to agree with me, maybe it's the most profitable way to promote games. And also, of course, it's a marketing method. Because it's really hard to persuade people to pay upfront for a game if it has such a big license. So also licenses are very helpful with premium games, I guess. Yes, and me personally, I would prefer in a free-to-play model different conversion rates and RPPUs. Maybe now we have 2 to 5% payers in the games, and there are some whales that are paying 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 euros in these games. And for me, it sounds more sustainable if you have 10 or 15% payers that are paying less. So, but how to achieve this? This is really a good question, maybe.
Well, just speaking on behalf of a company that's grown very successfully due to the free-to-play business model, I would agree with a lot of the points that, especially in the West, pay-to-win is reviled. Everybody hates it. Just from our perspective, one of the things that we've done, and this is what I encourage most of the developers in this room to do as well, is if you continue to think about innovative ways of monetizing your free users, and instead of thinking of you're limited to a pay-to-win model, I know it sounds like philosophical gibberish, but if you really adapt a mode of free-to-win, which is a hard concept, Wargaming last year adopted this philosophy internally, not just for PR purposes, but actually for internal game design sessions. When we come to a hard decision, we always lean on, okay, let's make it free to win. Let's make it free to win. The reasoning and the business rationale behind this is, number one, because players hate it when you go and pay to win. But number two, we have a different philosophy on how we monetize our users. And what we monetize is not necessarily, we don't monetize. What we monetize is their time. And once again, at risk of sounding very philosophical about this, we focus really hard on having those players be engaged with your experience over a very lengthy period of time. And this is difficult, but if you're able to achieve that, then once they become a lot more invested in your world, your character's universe, they're a lot more happier to spend money within the game, even if it may not necessarily give you obvious competitive advantages. So this is something that I would encourage everyone to really think about as you design your free-to-play mechanisms. Just on the broader level of business models in general, I would encourage all of us to look at other entertainment industries, whether it's TV, movies, music. Our business models around all of those segments have evolved, and it continues to evolve every day. And so I think where we sit today in the video game industry is free-to-play it seems like it's a de facto standard as of now. I could easily see a lot of smart people gathering around in various boardrooms and studios around the world, innovating around this business model. 2 years later, we could probably have a completely different discussion on what works best.
Just to have an idea, can you raise your hand who will have questions in the next few minutes? Okay, so you have 30 seconds to answer my next question, each of you. I hope I gave them homework, so they prepared it, actually. So what is your vision to be the next super trend in gaming? Any crazy fantasy you have? Go.
Oh, that's a good question. I would expect, or would appreciate a browser-based framework for the future, so that we come out of the app stores a little bit. But I'm not so sure that it will really happen.
So I did my research. I looked at inventions for gaming in the last years, and they all focus about things that are really physical. You put stuff on your eyes. There's this plate you walk in and keeps you in place, so you can really walk around as you play. And then there's this vest that vibrates when you wear it, and everything is so physical. And going back to what I said previously, I don't think players want to be very physical when they play. So I think, why not enhance and not sure it can work, but why not enhance our emotions? Let something spread a smell that brings us to life when we play. Like, oh wow, I just hit something, or I baked something, or something like that.
I didn't do my homework, so, but I love that idea.
Yeah, smell.
That's perfect. Let's develop that. I'm going to go with Leo's answer, the centogram.
Okay, so we have guys with lots of emotions here. Very rare to see so many.
My dream experience would be something that kind of tears down the current physical barriers of gaming experiences. And what I mean by that is, whether it's your processing power of your phone or your PC or your console or even the servers, I think everybody, if there's any game designers or programmers, you'll always work within the boundaries. I think there are a couple of teams out there who are doing innovative work in tearing down these physical boundaries on processing power. So just to use a general word, cloud, which will allow, previously, let's say it was like 30 player maximum per battle or combat. I think in the very near future, we're going to see like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 global participant in a massive experience. I don't care what it is. It could be a big dance party. It could be fighting. It could be running around. That offers a level of experience that is completely out of this world compared to what we see today. I'd love to see that world and those kinds of experiences soon.
Thank you very much. So, questions?
Hi, thank you for the panel, very interesting. I'm a big believer in VR myself. I'm going to try to argue very briefly why. I think it's fair to say, if we look at mobile phones, that they're not just a tool, they're an extension of ourselves. And for VR to work, it also has to become an extension of ourselves. It has to reflect who we are, our personality, and it has to be useful. And what convinced me that it's going to work, not necessarily next year or in the next 2 years, but 5 years tops, is that Facebook bought Oculus Rift for $2 billion before they even have a product to ship. And Facebook is typically the kind of company that extends your personality into the web. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, I'd make a quick comment on the Facebook strategy on this case. I completely agree with all of your points. I think the fact that it was Facebook that was able to invest $2 billion in it shows that they are in this for the long run. They have conviction and belief that this experience, immersive experience, will come. And only a company like Facebook or somebody with a deep pocket like that who has a patience and a long-term vision and strategy around it can, I think, execute on this. And I think that's what some of us are reflecting here is, I think none of us are really, well, none of us personally believe it's a bad experience. We all believe it's a super immersive experience and changes the world and how we interact with the digital space. But I think it's just, my perspective on the Facebook point is that is exactly why I think it's going to take some time. I don't know how long, but whether it's a year or two, maybe 3, 4, there is some amount of time that will be required to get to a certain viable market. And I think that's when, if it does, that's when it's going to really explode.
Yeah, I agree. I think stepping away from gaming, this is you made this point, so I'm sorry, but the Facebook acquisition is huge. I think applications of VR for Facebook are more exciting when you're talking about things like hunting for an apartment or shopping or anything that just connecting like you do on Facebook instead of using Facebook Messenger. Now I'm in your apartment and we're hanging out playing table tennis, whatever that is. I guess that's a game. So, but yeah, I think it's very exciting that Facebook acquired Oculus, and I think will probably be the best execution, at least in the near term, or not so near term.
Right. So I totally agree with Sean and Devin. But also, given even what I said, let's say that you agree with me that we never became a mass market product. Would you have gone back and invented Wii had you known that? Yeah, sure. And would you have developed games for Wii? Definitely, if that's within your scope of interest and the potential is interesting for you. Definitely, it doesn't have to be a mass market media for you to develop for it, right?
Yeah, I agree with you totally too. And also the Facebook acquisition shows that maybe the first killer application for the mass market is not a gaming one. So maybe it's Facebook, social interaction or whatever, or also for the mobile space. This is what I could imagine, traveling around or sitting in an airplane, using my mobile phone and watching TV through this, because the displays are very small. I take the Brill and I'm away, and I'm in the movie. So this is something what I can imagine. This is the first what really comes up.
Yeah, when you use it on a plane, I feel like that's like the best place to watch a VR movie on an airplane.
Especially a VR movie about plane crashes.
Thank you.
Okay, next question.
We've been talking a lot about the future of games in terms of taking games and expanding them beyond their current boundaries. But what about the gamification of things that we do in everyday life, like learning or healing or recovery?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And combining that with VR and Facebook, big social networks, I think that, look, sometimes I think about sitting in a lecture hall and getting a university course and gamifying that. I think could be really interesting. Again, I think in order to do those things, there needs to be massive investment. So whether that's a private company that's going to invest in that, and if there's a business justification for that, I don't know. Or maybe it's a governmental organization or a university that may do it, or healthcare company. Well, I guess that could be a private company. But I think yes, I think the gamification of things like college courses, healthcare, et cetera, could be very interesting.
Great. We'll take one more question, Netta. Okay.
One person will answer one question. Okay. That way we can get more questions. Who's next? Okay.
I have a question about the experience. You mentioned the phones being second screen when talking about TV shows and stuff like that. What do you feel will be the future of, like it seems people want to have the whole experience, so we are making games immersive, but what will be the additional stuff to make it even more so?
Who wants to go for that one?
Well, I think just a little bit of reflecting on my fantastic experience of the 10,000, 50,000 people interacting together. I think that's really only feasible in a digital space. I mean, I take that back. Of course, 10,000 people can gather in a square and do something, but if you look at consoles, think about, like, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago. It was very common for you, 10 years ago, it was very common for you to see split screen experiences. 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, split up the screen, you're sitting on the sofa. These days, if you do a check of all the new generation console games, how many of them offer even like a 2-player split screen? Very, very few do. The assumption behind that is everybody is interconnected through the web, online. And so I think to your point, I think it's a dichotomy of everybody wants a very personalized experience, but everybody wants to socialize. Everybody wants to interact. And I think the way that's going to happen is the experience for you yourself, whether it's VR, sitting in a plane or in a sofa by yourself, but all of that's going to be always connected with everybody else in the world. And I think that's how you reach a level of immersion that you're describing. That's my view.
Okay, last question. Okay. So one before the last, you will also get to ask.
Out of curiosity, I was born and raised in the 80s and played games from CD-ROMs. So players turning into basically data and monetization, how do you think that's going to affect teenagers when they grow up?
Who is going for that one?
Teenagers when they grow up. We look at adults. So our core audience is 25 and above. We don't have negative influence per se on teenagers. Now that I got that off my chest. Right, there's the COPPA compliance issue where if someone's under 13, you can't take their social and personal information and use it, right? And it's defensive, and I think defenses are good in place. And you've seen some horror stories about Snapchat and leaked information that teenagers weren't aware that could get on the web. I'm not sure that games will be more significant in that sense than the entire modern mobile world where everything is connected and everything is intensified. Like there's a big thing here with students boycotting each other on social networks, and I think it's also a worldwide phenomenon. And you have more of that, right? So it's when I was a kid, I remember it was a parental guidance to keep the computer in the living room so parents could supervise what the kid is doing when they're interacting with games and the world. But now, how are you going to do it, right? Take away their phone, their digital refrigerator. It's hard. So I think we just need to be in better touch with our kids and tell them about what's happening out there.
I'll take a super quick stab at that from the framework of big data and analytics. And I agree with you, but it's not just in the video game space. All of us as consumers in Walmart or whatever, we're all small bits of data. Google is targeting, Walmart's targeting, Target is targeting, EA is targeting. The way I like to look at it in my ideal world is, yes, we are all distilled down to individual bits and pieces of data and preferences and behavior patterns and whatnot. The flip side of that is a lot of these service providers, including game companies, are hopefully using that data in a way where we can help you find a better friend. We can teach you how to play that game better. If you dropped out of the game, we can identify why you dropped off, where your frustration points were, and help you handhold your way along the way instead of you having to go down the street to see your friend to ask him, hey, can you help me with this experience? So I know this is not perhaps how it is today. That's at least a goal that we have at our company in terms of using big data and analytics to engage with users on a personal level, if that makes any sense. Your data set, yes, but we want to use that data set in a comprehensive way to engage with you in as personal of a way as possible.
Not to make more money.
Okay, last question in the back.
All right, so my question is about esports. We've seen a large growth within the last couple of years with the prize pools and the money coming in. So I want to know how does the growth of esport affect your business strategy?
Esports, competitive gaming. It's a massive part of what we do at Wargaming. I think there's a certain element of attraction that competition brings to people. It's why we love watching football and tennis and golf and League of Legends players and StarCraft players. We consider that a key pillar of not only our user acquisition strategy, our community retention strategy, engagement strategy. I think if it's possible, one mistake a lot of developers make, or publishers make, is, oh, we're going to make an esports game. I think that's a good goal, but I think if esports is your number one priority instead of the game itself, I think you're going to fail. You focus on the game experience first, but keep in mind that you would like to have an esports element around it, because just from anecdotally, Wargaming has benefited tremendously from our esports activities. Every year we're increasing our resource allocations to esports. It goes back to Twitch and Camcord and Mob Crush and Hitbox and whatnot. The reason why this whole ecosystem, and YouTube, the reason why this whole ecosystem is exploding is because esports is at the core and driving its growth, and it's feeding back into the success of the individual games itself. So that would be my quick comment on it.
Great, thank you so much. What a great panel. Thank you, everyone.